It was August 12, 2019 in Santarém. The midday sun made the air vibrate, heavy, as if the heat itself carried a dark message. The sound of footsteps echoed in the City Hall corridor, hard, determined steps. When our church door opened, the creaking of the wood seemed like a groan. A man in a gray suit entered with a stamped envelope and the look of someone fulfilling orders without soul. The paper trembled in his hands, but his voice came out firm. Demolition in 48 hours. Direct order from the mayor. At that instant, the world fell silent. The smell of dust rose from the floor, mixed with sweat and the pain of those who knew they were about to lose something sacred. If you think nothing can stop human power, wait to see what heaven did that night. My name is Rafael Dominguez. I'm 43 years old, and what I'm about to tell may seem impossible, but I swear by the cross of Christ, every word is true. That church wasn't just a building. It was the place where my grandfather preached when you could still speak of faith out loud, where my father was baptized, where I, at 8 years old, heard a hymn for the first time and felt God was there. Every plank of that floor had stories. Every pew kept tears, confessions, silent miracles. When the envelope fell on the altar, I heard the sound of paper hitting like muffled thunder, the announcement of an unjust sentence. God, where are you now? I thought, without having the courage to say it aloud. People began to gather. Mrs. Beatriz, with the cane she'd used since the knee accident, cried softly near the door. Jose the carpenter held his hammer like someone holding faith itself. A family with 2 children asked if there would still be service on Sunday. The old organ remained silent, covered by white sheets. It seemed even the angels had withdrawn. At 7 in the evening, we held an emergency meeting. The clock was ticking, and with each beat, hope seemed to crumble a little more. While the men talked about processes and deadlines, I looked at the broken stained glass and thought of the prayers that had already risen through there. What if God wanted us to fight to the end? Or would he allow destruction to show something greater? No one had answers, but we knew time was short. In less than 2 days, excavators would come, and all that would remain would be rubble and memories. At the end of that night, I sat alone at the altar. The candle flickered, and the wind entering through the cracks seemed to moan with me. Lord, if you're still here, show us it wasn't in vain. There was no echo, only the distant sound of crickets and the crackling of aged wood. I closed my eyes, tired, and a single tear fell. It seemed like the end, but it wasn't. At 4:17 in the morning, I woke to a sound that wasn't sound. It was something felt in the bones. A light hum accompanied by a golden light piercing through the window cracks. I thought it was the street lamp, but the lamp was out. I thought it was sunrise, but the sky was still black. The air seemed to vibrate and the ground to pulse. I felt my heart race, and without understanding, I stood up. The light was alive. It had texture, as if it breathed. And then I heard, not a common voice, but something that spoke from inside and outside at the same time. Look outside. I approached the door, trembling. My hands sweated. I opened slowly, and what I saw was not of this world. When the door opened, wind blew with a gentle but firm force, as if wanting to wake every leaf, every stone, every soul around. The light came from heaven, descending in beams that danced golden and white, mixed like sunlight reflected in pure water. The ground trembled slightly, and for a moment I thought it was a dream. But the cold on my skin, the air vibrating in my bones and heart beating like a drum said it was real. Outside, an intense brightness illuminated the deserted street, and silence was absolute. No dogs, no crickets, no wind, only that presence. And then, a deep voice, gentle and impossible to describe, filled the air. Fear not. What man tries to extinguish, I illuminate. I fell to my knees. The wood of the threshold was cold under my fingers, but the light enveloped me like a warm blanket. Tears fell without me noticing. It wasn't fear. It was reverence. Outside, doors began to open. One by one, neighbors came out of houses, covered by cloaks, sheets, whatever they had at hand. Their expressions were the same, amazement and peace. No one said anything. They just looked at the sky where light seemed to breathe, expand, touch every roof, every soul. Then I heard the sound of engines in the distance. Trucks. The demolition machines were coming to fulfill the order. The headlights' lights cut through the dawn and dust rose. But before the first tractor reached the square, the light from heaven intensified. The air became heavy and sweet, like the smell of rain about to fall. One of the drivers got out of the vehicle with a pale face. Another, trembling, let the key fall. The team's radio crackled, distorting officials' voices. Proceed, proceed. But no one moved. Gradually, more people approached. It wasn't just our congregation. Men in uniform, nurses, fishermen, elderly, and children formed a human wall before the church. No one had arranged anything, but everyone seemed to know what they were doing. They stood side by side in silence, looking at the sky, and the light, that living light, rested upon them. A glow so strong that even shadows seemed to kneel. The mayor arrived minutes later in a black car, furious, with the authority his position gave him. He got out, shouting orders, demanding explanations. But when he saw the scene, his voice failed. He stopped in the middle of the square, hands sweating, gaze lost in the brightness. "What is this?" he murmured. No one responded. The sound heard now was slow breathing, the tinkling of uniform metals and the light hum coming from above, as if heaven itself vibrated. Suddenly something began to happen among the people. Mrs. Beatrice, the one with the cane, let out a scream. I know him." She pointed to a tall man in simple clothes with a serene face. It was her husband, deceased 15 years ago. No one dared move. Soon, others began recognizing faces. Fathers, sons, brothers who had departed. It was as if heaven had opened a window, and all, living and dead, were there, together, under the same light. The mayor, speechless, knelt. Tears ran, washing away anger and pride. His voice came choked. "Stop everything. No one touches this house. This city belongs to God." And there, before everyone, he tore up the demolition decree. The paper dissolved in his hands like ash carried by wind. For a few minutes, no one moved. The light began to recede slowly, like the sea returning to the horizon. A light smell of flowers and rain remained in the air. And when the first ray of true sun appeared, the church was intact. No stone had been touched, but the most impressive was still to come. The following days were of pure confusion and pure grace. Journalists came from all over the country. Scientists wanted to study the phenomenon, but no one could explain it. Cameras that tried to record the light showed only static, as if heaven had censored the miracle from the world's eyes. Even so, the news spread. And what before was a small, forgotten church threatened with demolition became the beating heart of an entire city. People came from afar, walking for hours under the sun, just to touch the temple's walls. And many, upon doing so, cried, because something changed inside them. It wasn't emotion. It was as if an invisible force cleaned them inside. One morning, Mrs. Beatrice arrived without the cane. She entered slowly, eyes teary. When I asked her where the support was, she smiled. "I don't need it anymore," she said. She walked to the altar, firm as she hadn't done in years. A city doctor, skeptical and reserved, examined her afterward. The report said, "No apparent clinical explanation." And she responded, "No explanation needed when heaven has already spoken." That same week, a boy suffering from a brain tumor was brought by his parents. As we prayed, a soft light crossed through the broken stained glass. Hours later, the exam showed nothing. The tumor had disappeared. The city began to change. Where before there was dispute and violence, there began to be unity. People who had never entered the church began to help in services. The mayor, that same man who had signed the demolition, returned humbly. He left the official car and entered on foot, head bowed. He stopped before the altar and, with trembling voice, asked for prayer. "I don't want to govern by fear anymore. I want to govern with faith." And there, surrounded by people who before hated him, he knelt and cried like a child. The sound of tears hitting the floor seemed louder than any applause. The church grew so much it couldn't fit people inside anymore. We began celebrating 3 services a day. People gathered outside, on sidewalks, in windows, in squares. No one asked for anything. Everyone came to give thanks. It was as if the miracle had multiplied in every home. Men abandoned vices, families reconciled, doctors began testifying to what they couldn't prove. The sacred had spread through the streets. A reporter asked me once, "Raphael, do you believe God really descended that night?" I smiled, looked at the church tower and responded, "No, he never went up. He was always here. We only notice when we almost lose everything." And at that moment I realized the true miracle wasn't the light. It was what it lit inside each of us. Today, every time the sun sets over Santarém, a soft glow covers the church's cross. They say it's the reflection of city lights. But those who were there know there's something different in that golden beam that never goes out. And I end this story telling you, if God did this here, he can also act there, where you are now. Write in the comments your city's name, so the same God who touched Santarém's sky also touches yours. And share this story with someone who thinks miracles are over, because the truth is they're only beginning. The following morning dawned differently. The air still carried the perfume of that light, a mixture of wet earth and invisible incense. But the city's atmosphere was different. The mayor had canceled the demolition, yes, but something in him still fought between fear and reason. And it was on this threshold the real battle began. News of the miracle ran like wildfire, and in a few hours, hundreds of people took over the square. Some came by faith, others by curiosity, and others by challenge. Journalists disputed space around the church, and microphones trembled in hands. The sound of broadcasts echoed alongside prayers, creating a chaotic chorus of human voices, trying to understand the divine. And in the midst of everything, I could only look at the sky, trying to comprehend why I still felt that pulsing in the air. Then came the tension. Excavators returned to line up on the street, this time with military reinforcement. It was as if the government wanted to show strength, reaffirm that earthly power still commanded. Engines roared. The crowd fell silent. I stood on the church step and shouted with all the strength I had left, "Whoever is with me, remain standing." No one moved. No one fled. On the contrary, each person there seemed to gain roots in the ground. Men, women, elderly, and children formed a human wall. No shouting, no aggression, only the sound of hearts beating in the same rhythm. Soldiers hesitated, and at that instant, the air began to vibrate again. A subtle sound, almost imperceptible, took over the square, like the rustling of distant wings. The light returned. First, as a soft glow coming from the church windows, then as a golden wave expanding through the people. Faces began to illuminate. Teary eyes met. The silence was absolute, but within it was something alive. Soldiers, without understanding, lowered their weapons. One of them, with tears in his eyes, let his helmet fall. The mayor from afar observed everything, unable to speak. And that's when the impossible happened again. Old Beatrice, the one who had recognized her deceased husband, raised her gaze to the middle of the crowd and shouted, "They've returned." Everyone turned, and there, among the people, familiar figures began to appear. Faces time had taken. Fathers, sons, old pastors. They weren't shadows nor vague apparitions. They were clear, serene presences, with the same light coming from heaven. People began to cry, some to laugh, others simply knelt. Time seemed suspended. No one knew if it was minutes or hours. The mayor fell to his knees, defeated by something that didn't fit in decrees. "Forgive me, Lord," he said, voice breaking. And then, before everyone, he raised the document ordering destruction and tore it. The sound of paper dissolving echoed like thunder of liberation. The crowd exploded in applause, but soon sound gave way to peace, that deep peace that can't be explained, only felt. Machines were turned off, soldiers dispersed, and the entire square remained in silence, wrapped by a soft glow that seemed to breathe along with the city. When the last beam of light receded, the sky returned to its common blue. But no one was the same. The mayor raised his gaze and said something I'll never forget. "Today, heaven showed us there are orders no man can revoke." That night, Santarém slept in peace. But something said that was only the beginning of a new era. In the days that followed, Santarem became a heart-pulsing faith. Streets were full as on festive days, but it wasn't celebration. It was reverence. Men left work early to go to church. Women brought photos of sick relatives. Children sang hymns they didn't even know where they'd learned. The small church, which barely held 100 people, now received hundreds, from morning until dawn. And even outside, those who knelt on the sidewalk said they felt the ground vibrate, as if the soil itself kept the memory of light. Miracles began to multiply. First, discreet, pains that disappeared, wounds that closed, nightmares that ceased. Then came the impossible. A fisherman who had lost sight in his left eye entered, supported by his wife. At prayer's end, he began to see the stained glass colors over the altar and fell to his knees, shouting, "I see, I see." Doctors were called, and the exam confirmed what no medicine explained. A child with body covered in wounds was healed during a simple song, and most impressive, in each case the golden glow appeared, subtle, as a reminder the light hadn't left. It had just spread. But the miracle wasn't only in healings, it was in changes no one expected. The mayor, now transformed, created Day of Light, in memory of what occurred, and determined no house of faith would be demolished without dialogue with the people. He began attending services, not as authority, but as servant. Once, he went to the pulpit and said, voice choked, "I ordered a church demolished. God demolished my pride." That made many cry. It was the living symbol of redemption. Newspapers continued trying to explain. Scientists pointed to plasma theories, atmospheric phenomena, collective hallucination. But those who were there knew. There was something eyes don't capture, and only the heart understands. I myself spent sleepless nights, trying to comprehend why God chose that place, those people. Until one day, praying alone, I felt again that light warmth and understood. The miracle wasn't to prove power. It was to rekindle faith. With time, new ministries, missions, and shelters emerged. Young people began leaving Santarem carrying Bibles and testimonies. Doctors gathered to care freely for needy sick, saying they wanted to repay what heaven had done. What was a small church became the epicenter of a wave of hope that crossed borders. But what most marked me was the gaze of a woman who arrived one night with her son in her arms. The boy was unconscious, lifeless. She placed him before the altar and said only, "If the Lord is still here, return my son to me." Silence lasted eternal second until a sigh broke the air. The boy opened his eyes. That mother screamed, embraced him, and everyone there knelt. There were no more doubts. The same God who once descended in light now walked among us, and each miracle was a spark of his presence. But something was still to come. Something that would prove Santarem's light hadn't ended. It had just changed form. That night, after the boy's miracle, I stayed alone in church. Candles burned slowly, projecting shadows dancing on ancient walls. Wind entering through windows brought the sweet smell of flowers and distant rain. The city slept, but something inside me knew. God was still there. I sat on the same bench where everything began and looked at the ceiling, now covered by golden reflections that insisted on remaining. That's when I understood. The light didn't come just to save the church. It came to rekindle every heart that had given up believing. I closed my eyes and began to pray. Not a rehearsed prayer, but a cry coming from the soul. Lord, you who did the impossible before an entire city's eyes, now touch the one watching, the one crying hidden, the one who thinks miracles are no longer for them. Enter that person's house, invade fear, erase pain, restore faith. May your light, the same that stopped destruction, also stop the storm inside every heart hearing you now. Because if you did it here, you can do it there, wherever this voice reaches. As I prayed, silence was replaced by a light sound, like the distant echo of a choir. I opened my eyes and noticed something I'll never forget. The broken stained glass, the one through which light entered that dawn, was now completely restored. No one had fixed it. It had simply returned to being whole. I felt a shiver run through my body and understood. God had left his signature before departing. The next day, the church dawned full again. People came from afar, bringing photos, letters, and names written on papers. All asked for prayer. Some left messages at the altar's feet. I believed again. He healed my son. The light arrived here too. And that morning I realized Santarem's miracle didn't end there. It just changed address. It followed the path of prayers departing from that place. If you reached the end of this story, know it's not coincidence. God brought you here for a reason. Perhaps your church about to be demolished is your marriage, your health, or your tired faith. But remember, when the world says it's over, heaven can still descend with light. Before leaving this video, write in the comments your city's name. Let's pray together for it so the same light that stopped destruction in Santarem also shines where you are. And if this story touched your heart, share it. Perhaps someone somewhere needs a spark of faith to not give up. Because the next story I'll tell you happened at dawn when the entire world seemed to collapse. It was 3:11 in the morning when a flood advanced on an entire village, and something from heaven descended again. You want to know what happened that night? Then subscribe and prepare your heart, because when heaven decides to act, no force on earth can stop it. Amen.